Hey, Jeannie, where the hell are you?
What? I'm in Austin.
It looks nice there.
It's beautiful. Wilson Rickerson is here from Converge Strategies.
Oh, hey, Wilson.
Hey, Jeannie and Bruce. Lovely to see you both.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
What are we talking about today?
You'll be delighted to know, Jeannie and Bruce, we're talking about lessons from the military on resilience for the energy transition.
A lot of lessons there, I'm sure.
Sure. There's both some on the good side and some on the bad side. And we might sort of touch on both of them for a bit. So we at Converge Strategies focus on clean energy, energy resilience, and national security, which is a pretty dynamic place these days. The US is moving faster on clean energy than people even thought possible. And the world is definitely more dangerous. A few years ago, people would complain during planning exercises that we would run that two disasters happening at the same time was sort of an unrealistic scenario. Now we have catastrophic wildfires and hurricanes happening during a global pandemic with side orders of crippling cybersecurity and drought. And that's just sort of a normal Tuesday. So things are changing fast, and we try to advise our partners on how to keep up. One of our largest partners is the Department of Defense. Some fun facts about DoD. They are the world's largest energy consumer with a $15 billion energy spend, and they have the property equivalent to the size of the state of Tennessee. They're also the world's largest bureaucracy, so change is pretty hard. But they've adopted some really interesting approaches to both clean energy and to the very exciting times that we live in. I guess if it's all right with you, I'll get to the show and tell component of Energy Nerd Show and Tell.
Show us your map, Wilson.
All right, it's an awesome map, Bruce. But actually, before we get there, are either of you all zombie movie fans by chance?
Eh.
Take that as an enthusiastic yes. Perfect. So you all both know the scenes where the survivors finally make it to the military base, and it is up and running, but they won't let anybody in because they might be zombies. So huge bummer. In reality, many, if not most, military bases are actually going to collapse along with the electricity grid when the zombies eat their way through the control room. So my show and tell graphic, it shows DoD's reliance on commercial utilities, which many people sort of don't know and find pretty shocking. We always assume that there's a bunker with plenty of fuel, everyone's there, and there's a heads-up display that shows everything happening around the world. But we've sort of seen from the recent catastrophes that that is sort of not true. DoD is 98% reliant on the commercial electricity grid, but similarly also reliant, this sort of just came out in a report this year, on the telecom system, on the natural gas system, and also the water system. And as we've seen, all of these utilities not only are bad if they go missing on their own, but they also pull each other down. And Shannon did a nice job of covering that on the previous Energy Nerd Show. We sort of seen those types of cascading collapses for DoD in Superstorm Uri down in Texas. 80% basically of the military bases went down, some for multiple days. And as Smitty pointed out, also on the Energy Nerd Show, the electricity system also pulled down the water system, which was really, really bad. So for DoD, it's not uncommon for outages to happen also, which is pretty shocking. Each year, DoD experiences about 1,000 power outages over 8 hours or longer. Many of those are at bases that can't tolerate interruptions. Our military now relies on a globally networked force. More and more of our critical missions operate out of bases here in the US, like remote piloted aircraft that conduct intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance missions. Also, the National Guard units that are responding to all of our sort of litany of natural disasters also need the lights to stay on at their bases. So our sort of domestic operations are increasingly critical for everything the military does. And we as a country have paid a lot of attention to overseas DoD operations and spend a lot of money to improve and sustain them, while our domestic infrastructure is sort of falling apart. But so the line between critical missions overseas and missions here at home is more or less disappearing, but our defense strategy has a long way to catch up. So that's sort of the opening spiel. I will say, though, on the bright side, that DoD is paying close attention and pushing a lot of new innovations forward, especially around energy resilience, because they have to. You can also see in the graphic that we've worked with more than 60 military installations over the past couple of years to help increase their energy resilience. And there's some important and pretty cool ways that DoD is way ahead, in many cases, of civilian energy planners and energy policymakers. And there's a lot that we as civilian energy nerds can learn from. over time.
That sounds great. I'm listening and thinking, how much of the DoD's 15 billion a year are they spending on local, on-site generation, microgrids, and storage?
It is growing, Bruce. The large majority, 75% of that spend is on operational energy, which is sort of everything that either moves or moves people generally abroad. And then about 25% of that is installation energy, which is for domestic infrastructure, mainly the buildings or the non-tactical vehicles here at home. It's sort of strange. People think that DoD has a lot of money, but a lot of our appropriations for domestic installations, they're not really sufficient, certainly to sometimes even pay the energy bills, let alone to make the energy resilience infrastructure upgrades that are necessary. But that is changing. A couple of years ago, the Energy Conservation Investment Program became the Energy Resilience Conservation Investment Program, ERCIP. And that recently got plussed up to about $150 million a year to invest in things like on-site distributed generation. But it's not really enough to scale to the extent that DoD knows it needs to sort of meet today's challenges. But it's something. And the other thing I'll say too, Bruce, is, besides having a pot of money, another sort of focus of DoD's that many may not appreciate is that there is sort of obviously federal legislation requiring renewable energy, but then DoD has a unique and more significant renewable energy requirement through congressional law. But then over time, they have, so first of all, procured a lot of renewables, a fleet of about 1.5 gigawatts of on-site or nearby capacity. But they've also issued policy guidance that requires their renewable projects to take energy security into account. And then more recently, they've made energy resilience sort of by law, again, the central tenet of DoD energy policy. But then even the energy resilience policies now require sort of a reliance on renewable energy in order to sort of stretch diesel fuel supplies and provide unlimited local sources of power. So they've done a nice job of, at least at a policy level, making sure that renewables is looking at resilience and resilience is looking at renewables.
When I read Dan Jurgen's book, The Prize, back ages ago, I was really struck and surprised. I mean, I knew energy was important, but he basically, told, history in terms of oil strategy, right? And World War II, was basically, at least from one perspective, is like all about using and controlling, thinking about oil, right? And so anyway, it seems like it's mission critical, resilience, reliable energy, and thinking about the supply. And it seems like it's a mission critical thing for the military.
It is, Bruce, and that's a good term for it. Another one of the military's or insights is that they start from mission first. So if they're building a microgrid, it's not like, let's cover this entire community in a renewable energy microgrid or this entire campus. It's what's that one function that if everything goes bad, if the zombies really take over, what's the one thing that has to run? It could be the campus that needs to stay up, but it may be actually more the building or even a circuit or even a load. And if you're starting to focus on that, it sort of opens the door to sort of possibly quicker, more targeted, and more cost-effective resilience investments. It sort of flips the way we've been doing microgrids on its head. And so that's sort of one of the takeaways. We've also started to see that happen in the civilian world and through the Massachusetts Clean Energy for Resiliency program, which we've been working on. We've been trying to adopt a similar kind of mission-first approach to even looking at things like small town fire stations. What is that one thing that has to run? And can you do a solar and storage system quickly rather than keep the microgrid for the whole community as a North Star? But what can you get done right now? Because the problems are here today, and a microgrid could take a labor of love in 5 years.
I'm thinking the priorities might be internet and coffee.
Maybe keep your meds refrigerated.
Yeah, and actually working on some of the civilian projects, we've been learning a lot about where the critical loads are in different types of buildings, and also how little we know as an energy community, as an emergency management community, about what loads really are generic to critical buildings, like what makes them important and what they take to power. So we're sort of excited about doing more of that. And to your point, Jeannie, totally. Like for some fire stations, they don't have a lot of load that needs to run. But the fire truck has some charging banks for things like flashlights, carbon monoxide detectors, and the ambulance will have some med refrigeration. It's not a huge load, and when things really go sideways. And that's something else, I think DoD also pays a lot of attention to.